Hi, I'm Liz Niles. I'm a Senior Human Resource Manager working for the Trust, and one of my areas of expertise is equality and diversity. Equality and diversity covers a multitude of sins, from discrimination, harassment and legal implications. And this presentation is just going to give you a brief overview about how equality and diversity has an impact on your role as a volunteer. As a volunteer, you're more likely to be one of the first people that a patient, a relative, a carer or visitor comes into contact with when they enter the hospital or an outpatient clinic or a ward. And it's really important for the Trust to ensure that all those groups of people are treated with dignity and respect with whomever they come into contact with. And just as a test case, just think about the last time you went shopping. And how did the supermarket checkout person treat you? Are they the sort of person that talked to you as they were scanning their goods? Or are they somebody who just looks down at the checkout at your goods and just totally ignores you and just asks for your money at the end of the day? I know me personally, I would prefer to be treated by the first person who can make some conversation, but not a lot of conversation. And that's the difference between treating somebody with dignity and respect and those who don't treat people with dignity and respect. And we want you as a volunteer to make sure and to behave in a manner that people feel that they're the only person that they're being coming into contact with, that they're the only person that you're really interested in. Every single time. I know that's really hard, but that's what we expect for all our volunteers and all our workforce as well. How much of the message that you give out on a day-to-day basis is actually read and understood? And you may be familiar with terms about your use of your body language, the tone of your voice, and the words that are said. So when you are greeting people and working with patients and our own staff, just remember that most of the message that you're giving out is actually through your body language. So if you're not making eye contact with somebody, then they may well think, actually, this volunteer is not interested in me or what I've got to say or hearing my concerns. If your tone of voice is raised, then they might feel that that's really aggressive, and that will be the next message that they would take home. And actually, 7% of the words that you say, whilst you might think are really important, is a very small part of the message that you give. I'm just going to take you through some of the legal implications that we as an organisation need to think about when we're dealing with people. And in equality and diversity terms, there is a big piece of legislation referred to as the Equality Act, which came in 2010. That's an overarching piece of law that determines how particularly public sector bodies, such as the National Health Service, have to operate and how to have to treat different groups of people. There are 9 groups of people that are protected from discrimination, harassment and victimisation under the Equality Act. And they are shown on this next slide. So the first group of people are protected are people because of their age. So that means the Trust can't discriminate and can't treat people differently because of their age. The next group of people are people who covered under the Equality Act are those who are lesbian, gay or bisexual or transgender. And those people again have protection for discrimination in terms of access to services as well as treatment within the service. And sometimes we find we might have to do something differently for this group of patients or any group covered under the Equality Act because of their specific need. But you ask yourself the question, well, so how do I treat and deal with somebody who's a transgender person? What do you do and where should that patient be cared for? And as a trust, we have to ensure and be really careful that we ensure that the patient who may be transgendering is treated with dignity and respect, as well as all the other patients who might be cared for on that ward. Probably more commonly known are people who have a disability, and under the Equality Act, the definition for disability is a short or long-term condition that prevents somebody from carrying out their normal day-to-day activities. So that could be something as simple as I've broken my leg, so I'm temporarily disabled until I've had my leg is mended, to somebody who has a condition which means they might have to use a wheelchair on a permanent or temporary basis. So the raft of disabilities covered on the Equality Act is enormous, and is very much about how the individual feels. Somebody might have a condition, but they don't feel that it's preventing them from carrying out their normal daily life. Disability also covers mental health conditions, as well as other visual impairments. So the broad, it's a little word that means an awful lot. But again, as a healthcare provider, we have to ensure that we're treating people as individuals and we're not treating people in a discriminate way. In the next group of people, there will probably be people from different ethnic backgrounds and race. On the island, Isle of Wight, we have very few people who are resident here from different ethnic origins. One of the things that probably won't be very obvious when you first meet a person is their religion or belief. But that's one of the areas that we also need to be careful about, not discriminating against somebody. And often when you're probably working on a ward and talking to patients, then you might find out whether they have a strong religion or belief. But sometimes it's not something that's very obvious, and you need to be aware of your beliefs and not to impose those beliefs on the people you work with and the people you're responsible with caring for, and just respect that people have different views and beliefs from yourself. So if you, in the course of your volunteering, you identify a patient or that you think has specific religious needs that you don't feel you can help them with, then I suggest you contact a member of the ward team or the volunteer coordinator, who can put you in contact with the chaplains who've got a wealth of knowledge and expertise in a wide range of religions and will be able to support the patient much more effectively. Other groups of people that we may need to be mindful of in terms of discrimination are people who are pregnant or who have had a baby, as well as differences between men and women. And the last group of people protected under the equality legislation are those people who have had gender reassignment. And I touched on those when I talked about people with different sexual orientations. But gender reassignment is a new group of people of the society who are protected. And they're really just protected in terms of access to services, which is really important for us as a healthcare provider. But they are protected in terms of discrimination for access to services. What is discrimination? There is a legal definition which is quite long and complicated, but in summary it means that you shouldn't treat a person or a group of people differently because of a characteristic they have that the other group of people don't have. For example, if you are in a wheelchair, you would find it difficult to get access to a building unless there's a ramp. And that would be a good example of direct discrimination. So you're actually preventing somebody who's in a wheelchair from getting access to a building. One of the things that you need to think about when you're volunteering and in day-to-day life is about what influences your attitudes and behaviours. This slide here illustrates the sorts of things that influence our attitudes and behaviours. The media is of huge influence to how we think. Subjects that are in the media today, a lot of organisations use the media to try and influence our buying habits, if it's about purchasing goods, to how you might want to vote in a general election. Your family and how you've been brought up influences your behaviour as well. You have your own values and beliefs, but they will be influenced by your upbringing and how they manifest themselves in your day-to-day behaviour. Your friends and family, as well as your own personal experiences, will influence how you behave. Our experiences and how we share those influence one but our own selves behaviours, but also how we influence other people's behaviours. And going back to early childhood, how you were treated at school and what your school life was like, and also as you started to go into adulthood and you have different work experiences, they will influence who you are today and what made you the person that you are. And the key point about equality and diversity is about appreciating that, okay, I have my own values and beliefs, and whilst I might not know where they came from, they're mine and I own them. But the person sat next to me or the person that I'm working with today will have different values and beliefs to mine. Some of them may be the same, some of them may be completely different, but they're theirs, and we need to respect that they're theirs and treat them as individuals. And other terms that you may come into contact that are used interchangeably with equality and diversity are bullying and harassment. And whilst harassment is covered under the equality legislation that we've already talked about, bullying isn't. But as a trust, we do not tolerate bullying of any shape or form. So my one message to you is, if you see behaviour or hear things that you think is bullying, you need to tell somebody that you're comfortable to talk to. That could be somebody, and ideally somebody in the locality that you're volunteering in, or contact the volunteer coordinator. Okay, so the last part of this presentation, just going to give you some tips about language that you might want to use, or just to raise your awareness about, that actually will help people feel you're treating them as an individual with dignity and respect. Avoid using the term old. It's when you say man or woman, just don't use the word old, because old is quite a subjective term that makes people feel, actually, people might say I'm old, and my age may be greater than the person sat next to me, but I might not feel old. Shouting at somebody who has hearing difficulty is also a natural reaction, but actually makes them feel as if you're not treating them with respect. So when you're speaking to somebody who you know has a hearing difficulty, then speak slowly, face them directly so they can read your lips and get the message, and you can get the message across to them. Okay, I'd just like to thank you for watching this video. Equality and diversity is a massive subject that I've tried to condense into a very short period of time. So if you'd like any further information about equality and diversity, then contact the volunteer coordinator, who I'm sure you will be able to signpost you into the right direction. Thank you.